welcome back to episode 90 of the Impulso Podcast by Momentum Works. So I'm sure you've noticed immediately that something is different about the background, and we also have two special guests with us today. So we have Hong as well as Nhi from Metub. So maybe you guys can introduce yourselves.
Okay, so my name is Hong. I'm currently the CEO of Metub. Metub is one of the content creator facilitator in Vietnam, and what we've been doing is to turn creator passion into a sustainable career. And I've been doing it for 5 years. Before that, I was an auditor and then investment advisor.
Okay, hello everyone. My name is Nhi. I have been selling things online for a living for the past 12 years. I work in e-commerce, food delivery, a bit of fintech, a bit of e-commerce. And I recently joined Metub to endorse their adventures into the social commerce. And now I'm serving as the director of strategy and blending at Metub.
So Jangan, maybe you can share a little bit more about how did we actually meet Metub and why are we here in Vietnam filming with them?
Okay, hi, this is a very nice setting. So basically a few months ago, we were in Hangzhou doing our live commerce immersion. And I think Nhi and Hong actually joined us to discuss and visit some of the MCNs, the supply chain, and as well as the ecosystem players. And I think we met lots of friends. And some of the friends were saying that, hey, we want to visit Vietnam. So now here we are. So actually with us, there are a few investors, a few MCNs, a few supply chain experts from China who are there enjoying the sea. But why we're here?
So we're here in Can Gio. I'm the one who answered that, right?
Yes.
Okay.
where are we now?
Yeah, where are we
Bring us
now?
here, so
We are here sitting on the beach of the Can Gio district. It's the most far away district in Ho Chi Minh City, but it's very space away, the base of place. This Can Gio is kind of islands. This is the areas of 1/3 of Ho Chi Minh City, and more is the mangrove forest. It's a UNESCO reserve atmosphere. So in the visions of the Ho Chi Minh cities, we have the big plan to build Can Gio into the kind of the new Singapore. So in the next 5 years, we will invest about $15 billion to Can Gio. We build a large bridge that connects Can Gio to Ho Chi Minh City. We reduce the travel time about just half hour or something to Can Gio. We will invest mega cities, modern technology cities, and most of all, we invest in the very large capacity deep sea harbor.
Deep Sea Harbor,
Yeah.
Okay. So actually yesterday we hosted the event because since we have so many friends from China, and Meetup said that, okay, we can sponsor your office, we can sponsor you 100 chairs. And we had 160 people showing up, and it was very interesting discussions because it truly shows that people are actually very passionate about growing the economy, growing the business. And of course, we'll talk a little bit more about live commerce and retail that we are specializing in. And Nhi said, okay, since we have been in Ho Chi Minh City, so doing lots of things, why don't you see the new city? So you guys see the background, which is where the camping side, right? Near the seaside.
Yeah, this is climbing side.
Yeah, so actually behind the camera, it's the sea. I can see the sea is rising, but I think now we're still safe, right?
Yeah.
We're still safe.
I don't think it will rise through.
Yeah, the tide rising but still safe.
So, like Jangan mentioned, we did an event with some Chinese investors yesterday. So maybe we'll talk a little bit more about that later. Yeah. But maybe before that, you guys can share with our viewers your career journey and how do you guys see Ho Chi Minh or Vietnam, Ho Chi Minh City or Vietnam as a whole has kind of evolved over the past few years.
So I think...
Career path, I think I shared a bit, right? I think a bit more about career path of myself. I will talk about what I'm currently doing more. When I enter this kind of business industry, I actually have nothing in mind about content creator, about YouTube, about Facebook, or even I think TikTok is nothing by then. But what definitely induced me into this industry is because of the activeness and the rising trend of digital media content and the young population and the higher and higher adoption and usage of mobile and data. So it's very critical for such business like Metub to venture deeper into digital marketing, and for now it's social commerce, as you can see. By then, I don't think Metub can become what we've been doing today and then at that scale. But I think it's not just a year or 2 years journey, it's a 10 years journey. So for your information, we just celebrate our 10-year anniversary.
That's why they wear the same t-shirt.
Yeah.
It's that 10 anniversary
It's
t-shirt.
not
Yeah.
marketing, but it's real. So,
Yeah.
so what we are proud of is that we have been helping thousands of content creators in Vietnam to really turn their passion into a sustainable career. So people often joke that we live by passion, but without money, we cannot continue to do our passion, right? But What we do is currently helping them not just create content by passion, but that passion can also generate money. So from the past, they just can get money from advertising, and later on, not just advertising on platform, but also advertising from brands directly. But for now, there are more avenue of revenue stream, which recently we adopt the social commerce. You know what, like for social commerce, people really enjoying buying things while enjoying video content. So that's where content creator who can create interesting content that also have value of product in kind of illustration and product features, example illustration, then that's really interesting to people, especially I think young people like you, like you always choose to buy things on the internet. I don't know how many times, but for people, younger people in Vietnam, I don't think they're gonna just go around the street and then buy something, except for the time when they go to a shopping mall. So that's the dynamic, I think, not only happening in Vietnam, but also in the region. So I think we are in the right way, and we want to continue to expand our scale and also continue to help our content creators to do that. And talking about social commerce, talking about Vietnam, so we cannot forget about Ho Chi Minh City, right? Ho Chi Minh City is actually the economic center of Vietnam, not just the southern region. It contributes the highest GDP in terms of percentage. So the highest in terms of population. I think it also has the kind of most diverse and dynamic demography, continually push the economic further. So I think that is important for the active city like Ho Chi Minh City to continue to grow. Recently, we have not reached the full potential of us because the overall contribution of GDP of Ho Chi Minh into the total Vietnamese GDP is reduced. But I think the Ho Chi Minh City government, local government, is trying to invest more in infrastructure. It is requesting more kind of freedom to build their own agenda. So I think the government, the national government is also paving some way for such kind of special treatment. And as you said, we're gonna finish the bridge that can reduce the time between the city center with Can Gio to just around 30 minutes. So it's one of the few infrastructure project that we have right now. And I think infrastructure development is gonna be the key things for Ho Chi Minh to go back to its historical growing trend, and I'm looking forward to that. And yeah, I think infrastructure it's one of the most important factor in my mind.
I think just a few days ago, Mr. Tholam, the new party secretary, actually, I think made some speech to the governments in the south or in Ho Chi Minh City saying that, hey, you guys should take the liberty and build the economy, right? Yeah. So give some reassurance, right? That the focus is economic development.
Yes. I have strong kind of belief in the government and the party that they are really trying to find a way for Ho Chi Minh to realize its full potential, because we have been growing so fast and the city is so young and so energetic. And yeah, why don't we find some way? Like, you should remember that Thu Duc City is the first ever municipal city in Vietnam. So it's the strong example of Ho Chi Minh City can have some special treatment so that it can grow further.
Interesting. So you've given us a very good background on the growing economy behind Ho Chi Minh, not just Ho Chi Minh City, but Vietnam as a whole. And of course, we see that the government is also trying to do something to help the country's economy grow further. And I think people from China also have a similar sense towards Vietnam, right? So to give a little bit of context, we held an event yesterday with Metub and one of our other partners from our May immersion in Capital. So it was a joint event between some Chinese players, some Chinese brands, Chinese e-commerce enablers who came down to Vietnam to do a sharing as well. So I think we see that a lot of Chinese companies are interested in Vietnam. Do you guys get the sense here as well?
Yeah, I think so. But let I follow Tony's on his talk. I think Can Gio is a very good example of the whole Vietnam country economic progress. So this Can Gio is kind of untapped, but very potential role for Ho Chi Minh cities. So we have the areas is 1/3 Ho Chi Minh City, and it's almost similar to the total area of Singapore, and 95% of this area is the forest. So we have the blank papers. We can draw anything we want on that. It's an untapped source. And it's very unique combinations of, we have the atmosphere, we have the ecotourisms, we can build the very world-class infrastructure for international logistics. We plan to build a harbor that have the capacity, I think, is double or triple the harbor in Singapore. All of that is so that we look at the past when I read all the report or the projection say, hey, Vietnam grow in this number, that number, and then at the end of the year we assess that number so many times. So even in the year 2022, I believe that our GDP grow for 8% something, and we keep that rate. I believe for the next 5-10 years we can do that. We have very good rate in middle class. We still have the golden population for at least 10 years, and you see that the Vietnamese people is very active, very eager to do something new. So I think it's the ratios of growth for our country in the next 10 years.
How about you, Can Nguyen? What do you think? So obviously they've given us the Vietnamese point of view. They think there's a lot of potential, right? But Can Nguyen, you meet with a lot of these Chinese investors. I mean, not just Chinese investors, but investors in general. Yeah. What do you think is their sense on the potential or risk of business in Vietnam or the development of Vietnam?
I want to draw back a little bit in history. I mean, the first time I came to Vietnam was 2006, about almost 20 years ago. So I did a bit of backpacking, studied in Hanoi, and I didn't come to Ho Chi Minh City back then. So from Hanoi, I went all the way down to Hoi An. Then from Hoi An, I went up north to Sapa, to the Chinese border. And of course, Halong Bay as well, as a tourist. I remember I spent like 2 days in Da Nang. So using Da Nang as a base to explore the nearby. It's the city in the central part of Vietnam. And in 2019, I went back to Da Nang. It looked very, very different from what I saw like more than 10 years ago. It was modern, it was lots of developments, lots of hotels, and the infrastructure was good. I mean, this change is you don't see that in many countries, but I mean, coming from China myself, this feels very familiar to me, right? So you have something, and a few years ago, I mean, the infrastructure becomes very different, and a few years later, things become even more developed. So when you go to Hanoi, some of the outskirts, and you see new cities being built, they actually get built. And coming down to Ho Chi Minh City, so you just feel that it's very, very dynamic, right? So people are hardworking, people are hungry. And I think you guys went with us to China, and you probably were amongst the ones who asked the most questions. And these few days, we're with a few friends from China, from various parts of the ecosystem. And obviously their sense is that lots of things that we see here is already very similar to what we see in China. I mean, the quality of the live streaming that you guys are putting up. So in terms of lighting, in terms of the script, in terms of performance of the KOLs, in terms of the assortment of goods, it's already very similar to what they have in China. And people go to the port and they will see that, okay, wow, like trucks moving containers, people are working. They are working really hard, and it's similar to what we have experienced back in China a few years ago. And obviously, it's a different country. And obviously, I think things followed, in a way, there are similarities in the trajectory, right? Because China opened up in like 1978, but the real impetus from the central government was 1992. I think the reform and opening up in Vietnam happened around similar time. And China joined the WTO early 2000s, and Vietnam joined a few years later. So you see, I mean, a lot of similarities. And there are also lots of differences. I mean, China is a much larger market. So FDI came, and local competition very, very quickly came up. Vietnam, I think there's still lots of FDI coming in. I mean, China is like plateauing a little bit because of the cost and also because of local competition. But in Vietnam, we also see like quite a bit of local competition, but there's slight nuances which are different from what we see in China.
Momentum was launched our e-commerce 2023 report. I will link it down in the show notes if you guys are interested. But in the report, we realized that Vietnam's e-commerce market is actually the fastest developing in Southeast Asia, right? And of course, what does this mean for investors and companies? And I think for some Chinese suppliers as well, right? Because this is probably where some of the goods come from.
Okay. Yeah.
So he has been selling things for like what, 12 years?
Yeah, I'm selling things online for a living for past 12 years. So I really observe the development of the economic industry, the e-commerce industry in Vietnam for the past like at least 10 years. I know what's happening. So things change gradually, but very steadily. Firstly, we just sell a few things online. It's a book for accessories and fashions. So right now, people can sell medicines online, and we keep unlocking the new categories. Back then, it's just a few young people like Tony, like I, purchasing online. But right now, when I come back to my hometown, my 60-year-old mother is buying things online on online stream platform because it's so easy, it's so convenient. And back then, it cost me 5 days to wait for my parcel to drop at my door. It's right now, I can get it within 30 minutes if I think Ho Chi Minh City, and 1 day if I live out there in other provinces. The penetrations, the customer segment, the category that is searchable, and the level of service is on grow up really, really fast and steadily.
Yeah, I think talking about the growth of e-commerce, I also would like to emphasize on the contribution of data and mobile, right? You know that Vietnam is also have a high, really, really high adoption rate of mobile. And not only mobile adoption rate, but the data is also cheap. Like 5G here, I think just $3, $4 something for a month. You can swipe your phone like unlimitedly.
I think
So
I
it's
bought
like-
the wrong SIM card
Yeah,
for my
so I
trip.
think it's also kind of a very, very good thing that help us, like people like us, to use our mobile phone, and we really adopt our phone frequently. That's why I think like people like your mother and even younger generation, I think he also forgot about the really rising population
Gen
of
Z
young
and Gen
people,
Alpha,
not just
right?
Gen Z, but Gen Alpha too.
Gen
'Cause
Alpha too, okay.
Yeah, Gen
I think
Alpha.
for them, they even like more kind of online e-commerce platform avid than us. Like we even sometimes we go and we buy some stuff at wet market. But I know
Yeah,
my
right.
daughter, she
Right.
gonna know like what wet market is. But that's something I think we have to pay attention to. Like I don't say that GT, like traditional channel, would disappear, but there's gonna be a lot of room for growth for the new channel. That's what I think people who are working in commerce area, they should also pay attention to.
I and Tony we have young daughters, about 3-4 years old.
They are
And
buying things online?
Yeah,
3-4 years old.
No, not that much. But the story is, she asked for something. We try to buy it at the local store, at the ground floor, or the convenience store nearby, but it's sold out. And she says, "Why don't you purchase it on Shopee?" You know, Shopee Express, right? Just 30
3 or
minutes.
4 years old.
Yeah,
She
4
knows
years old.
Shopee.
She know. Why don't you buy the Shopee for me? They born online. They born e-commerce.
It's a very different demographic, right? They're born into this. They're so
Yeah,
used to it.
yeah. They know that's the solution.
Yeah.
So you've talked a bit about the growth of e-commerce, but how about the e-commerce ecosystem in Vietnam in general? How have you seen the growth of that over the past few years? Like SaaS providers,
You guys are
logistic
part of the
providers.
ecosystem, right? I mean,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I think talking about the e-commerce ecosystem, we have so many players, right? Previously, we just think about the sellers and then the buyers. Buyer is also an important part, right? When the e-commerce platform is growing, you have more. Not just seller cannot do something themselves, so they have to ask for help from enablers. And when, like, I remember that yesterday when Giang Gang talked about enablers, and one of the participants, they come to me and they ask, what is enabler? What he's actually doing logistic and fulfillment. And even the word sometimes is not familiar with some of the players. It means that out there are a lot of players playing in the enabler fields, but they don't understand. But I think for a long time they've been doing it. They're doing it even for traditional retail and offline channel. Now they turn offline and then they become the strong force of pushing the e-commerce forward. I definitely think that there are a lot of players out there. They playing the middle end role. Like they enable the sales of products online. So all of them can enablers. And we ourselves, like Metub, we also play the role of enabler. For example, like we do marketing for products of the brand. We are trying to do full funnel, like turn attention, viewership, buzz into orders too. So we have content creators to connect with brands and connect them together, seize a good deal for them, and then sell products online. One of the examples for growth is that I can give you, like for us, traditionally, we actually a media entertainment company. So we don't think that we can participate in commerce area. Like I think back then in 2021, like people really asked when we try to sell products like rice and durian, they ask like, why such company like you just try to optimize YouTube video and then go about marketing and running ads. Why you try to sell products? You know nothing about logistics, nothing about warehousing. Why you try to come into that? But we think at that time, shop attainment is a trend. It already happened in China, and I think it definitely happened in Southeast Asia as a whole and Vietnam specifically. And with that strong perception and strong belief in mind, we venture into commerce, e-commerce first, and we collaborate with some e-commerce platform. But it turns out that it's not something we're strong, right? We are not strong in terms of selling product. But what we are strong is putting the good content and trying to introduce product through that content. So that's, I think, is the time we explore that social commerce and live streaming specifically is very good bridge connection between commerce and content and marketing. We are one of the only player who push for live streaming commerce in Vietnam, and luckily after 2 years we are now one of the biggest MCN who enable creators to partner with a seller, partner with a platform to sell products. And now I think we are a really proper enabler. We can call ourselves that proudly, not just a kind of a newbie in this industry anymore. So I think for such a player like us, we can become an e-commerce enabler. I think everyone can do e-commerce. So just what you can choose and what is the right role to push for is something you have to think about. And I think with 53% specifically, I'm strong. I read the momentum growth, so I remember exactly the number and the growth rate, and it's the highest in South Asia. I think we continue to see higher, maybe not higher, but that kind of strong growth. E-commerce Vietnam can be a bigger portion of the general commerce. Yeah. So I think the trend will be like more and more people would join force. Yeah.
So it's kind of interesting. Over the past, I think two and a half years, I've been actually taking breaks in different parts of Vietnam because the culture is always fascinating. And the second is that the infrastructure is actually quite good. Good hotels, good food, and good connection. Because of that, there's an ant. We're just talking about a good infrastructure.
Yeah.
And natural as well. Yeah.
In nature.
Yeah, we're in nature. I've been to places like the Lào province, far north, around Sapa, and also a few nearby towns. And I drove from Hanoi to Yên Đê in the mountains next to Haiphong. So it's interesting. We went through a few provinces. Sometimes you see like industrial parks being formed. You see lots of factories, Chinese factories, Taiwanese factories, Korean factories. But one thing I do realize is that even like some very, very small villages, I mean, you pass by along the road, you will always see delivery riders, like JNT, you will see SPX, Shopee Express, you will see GTN, because all their colors are like bright, like yellow, orange, or red. Yeah. You will see them. It's like even in some of the remote places. So I was saying that, wow, okay. This is something that I didn't see like before the pandemic when I was going around, right? So you do see that the penetration is actually growing pretty impressively. I mean, this is not backed by any data. I mean, data, you have the 53% where we approximated from lots of data sources, I mean, including logistic providers. But we do see these dynamics when you actually go around the country, right? You see all these dynamics happening.
If we're talking about that, we do believe that even that we have very strong growth in the past years, but we still have a very potential growth in the futures because as I showed you yesterday, that our penetrations of e-commerce in total retail is still very small. A 7, a maximum 8% compared to 37% in China. So we have a long way to grow. Yeah, I believe so. And talking about JNTs and the last mile delivery, they are the segment of the ecosystem, cap enablers that help the e-commerce grow in Vietnam in general. But we're talking about that when we compare the ecosystem structure of what we observe in China, thanks to your immersion program and another trip that we come to China, we believe that Vietnam and China have a very similar structure of ecosystem. So what you have in China, we have the same thing in Vietnam. It is the source of traffic, you have WeChat. The source of traffic here, we have Meta, we have Google. And we have own kind of seller, that's individual seller, local brand seller, omni-channel retailers, own kind of enablers. So you have your one, you have BU. In China, we have own kind of MCN in Vietnam. The difference is, in Vietnam, we are much younger and we much long way to be like mature and reach the scale of what you have in China.
I think that's why so many Chinese investors and brands are interested in coming to Vietnam, right? Because they see the similarities. It's something they're a little more familiar with as well. But of course, I'm sure there are differences as well. Jangan, what do you think are some of the biggest differences that Chinese companies face when they come to Vietnam?
I think first and foremost is a different market, right? Even though there are some similarities in trajectory of development and the infrastructure is still different, the ecosystem players are different, right? I mean, in China, you don't have Google, you don't have Facebook. And Vietnam, you have that. You have this competition between the international players and local players. So, and also the developers, I mean, Vietnam has a large developer ecosystem, but developers' attention is split, right? Because, I mean, I know lots of people are making lots of money developing games on Google. I know lots of people who are making money doing Web3. In China, lots of actually developers are building different parts of the ecosystem, e-commerce service ecosystem, the software as a service on ERP, CRM. We do not see that as much in Vietnam yet. I mean, yesterday we visited Amazon, right? Amazon Global Selling. So they were saying that, okay, so the sellers from Vietnam, the number of sellers and the volume, I mean, going to the US from Vietnam has surpassed all the rest of Southeast Asia combined. But in terms of service ecosystem, I mean, look at China, right? Every seller is serviced by, I don't know, so many software developers, ERP and stuff. In Vietnam, we still don't see that. I think there are still gaps to be filled. But what we didn't mention yesterday is that because in China there are so many service providers, everyone doesn't have margin, right? So it's so competitive everywhere. But I think in Vietnam, so people can still afford to have a weekend off. So we have a few, I mean, today is Saturday. We have a few partners coming with us. And while we're filming this on the beach, they're on the other side of the beach actually working, selecting products on a Saturday. Because I said for their live stream is every day. I mean, you remember one of the studios we visited?
Yeah, we know.
So the
that.
KOL does 364 days out of 365.
Yeah.
And we're asking them, and which day do you actually get a rest? Is it Chinese New Year? They said, no, I mean, one day where I'm really, really tired. So take one day off.
It's not even her own birthday. It's just one random day when she's
Yeah, just
very
random day.
Yeah.
We
Need
got
some
sick.
rest, right?
So we spoke a bit about e-commerce. Maybe we can dive a little deeper into live commerce since that's the scene that you guys are in, right? How do you see the growth of live commerce, or what's the current penetration rate of live commerce in Vietnam now?
For the penetration of live commerce in Vietnam right now, I think we are catching really fast compared to the China markets. Right now, we believe that the penetration of live commerce in total, retail e-commerce Vietnam is almost 20% already, and really catching up. So with the Shopee Live, there's strong interest of entering and investing in that areas. I believe it will soon grow up to 20-25%.
That's a very high.
Yeah, really high.
Yeah. And something I would like to add is that I think among the 53% of growth last year for e-commerce, I think live commerce contributes significantly. So you can see in one of the reports I read, maybe from Google and Bain, and some other partner, they estimate that the growth for e-commerce in Vietnam for last year, maybe just 30%. But one of the things they might have missed is that I think at that time they don't think of live commerce. I think what surprised us the most is live commerce. And we all know that live commerce is growing in Vietnam. One of the reasons, and partially is because of TikTok Shop coming here. It's have a very strong, I think, backbone, not only in terms of system, but also in terms of partner for live streaming commerce to grow. Like the back end is really cater to the creator demands to connect with brands. And I think, as Nhi said, Shopee and maybe other platform, and even we have upcoming platform too, they definitely will need to look to live commerce as a part of their e-commerce growth strategy.
In addition to live commerce, what do you think are some other trends that you are seeing in the e-commerce or retail space in Vietnam in general? Besides just growth of live commerce, what are some other trends that are appearing?
Maybe I can make a comment about the supply chain part first. Even in the US and stuff, lots of goods are supplied from China, and lots of factories will supply their components from China. One thing we find interesting is I have a good friend, I think a university friend called Xuan Zun, or Xuan Yun as you would say in the South, and who is having a small firm designing electronic chips for some clients based out of Hanoi. And I actually want to ask him a question. Why you base yourself in Hanoi, not in Ho Chi Minh City? Because, I mean, this is the place where you see all the economic activities happening, right? And he gave me a very interesting reason. And first, obviously, Hanoi has lots of universities. Good students he can hire. And second, he said, because when I design a chip, I need someone to do the prototype and manufacture for me. So I don't necessarily always find the components in Vietnam. But if I'm in Hanoi, I can very quickly call someone in Guangzhou, and they can send something on a bus, on a truck, and it arrives almost the same day, like 12 hours. So that's an advantage that you have. And when it comes to live commerce per se, right, you have two parts in a live commerce. I mean, first is obviously the branded goods, right? And the second is that goods which are trendy, unique, and lots of sort of brands or suppliers, they can actually get the components, get ingredients from some of the factories in Guangzhou or surrounding areas actually very quickly. So you don't run a very large inventory risk. Because we've been looking at some of the countries where you need to source for certain components which are only manufactured in China, and you need to take 2 months. When you run live commerce, you spot the trend and you don't act upon it very quickly, then the trend is gone. You have to sell something else. I think that kind of like a supply chain proximity actually it's quite beneficial for Vietnam, especially in the northern part.
Yeah, I think you're right in terms of supply chain because, like to answer Sabrina's question, I think one of the trends we see clearly is increasing popularity of cross-border e-commerce because I think for production itself, right, like each of the country has their own strength. maybe like in Vietnam, we are strong in terms of agriculture product. And I think we actually sell a lot and export a lot of agriculture product to China. And from China to Vietnam, because China has a very big scale production. So a lot of, like you said, like cheap and industrial products, not just industrial product, but also everyday consumer product. We see a lot, like I just read a news, like we actually have already a couple of millions parcel coming from China to Vietnam every day, but we still see strong growth because I think of the ease of supply chain and increasing connection between country. Like a lot of logistic and fulfillment partners, they build the warehouse along the borders so that the time to the consumer can be shortened and like products and easily reach buyers like within a day or a few days. That would be one of the key factors that help e-commerce to grow in Vietnam for now.
Last October, I was in Sapa. Actually, I spent more than a week there, and somebody even remember I was absent from office for more than a week.
You were still sending me Slack messages, so...
Yeah, so I was
I never really realized.
working out of a balcony on a hotel where I can see Fancy Pan, the highest mountain, and I can see the flag there. And one day I said, okay, this place is like 40 minutes away from the Chinese border, let me just go there. So we took a taxi, and 40 minutes, we're at the border in Lao Cai. And Lao Cai, we crossed the border, you have to literally walk over, it's 2 minutes, and it's Ho Chi, right? So once you cross over into Ho Chi, and a couple of things which I find very, very interesting is first, along the immigration in Ho Chi, when you cross to the other side, you have all the businesses which are helping companies in Vietnam source for products, source for components, and everyone is saying that, hey, we buy from 1688, which is the B2B platform of Alibaba, and customers from Vietnam will come in and take the goods and go to Vietnam and either assemble or distribute. And the second thing which I find very interesting is that there are lots of agriculture and home products from Vietnam being sort of moved there. And one thing that's very interesting is that they hire lots of Vietnamese live hosts who speak Chinese to convince the Chinese customer, hey, this is genuinely from Vietnam. These fruits and stuff are genuinely from Vietnam. It's really bustling the border, and we crossed the immigration into China. So there were like 8 lanes at the immigration, and I was queuing in the lane, and at the end they said, oh, no, we can't scan the passport because amongst the 8 lanes, 7 lanes only available to scan that special travel permit for people living around the border. Only the last lane is for people who hold passports. And they said, wow, so yeah, every day we have like thousands of people coming in and out. The business is booming, trade is booming. I think it's something quite interesting and which we could observe. Yeah.
Talking about trends, I want to add another views from the consumer side. So recently become of the severe competition on the supply side. So the customer have much more options, right? We have so many options. Usually we have international brands. Now we have some brand and brands from China. So I have some emerging local brand in Vietnam. And thanks to the video platform, when people demonstrate product, talk much more about the function and also the ingredient of products. What happened? The concepts and the knowledge of the customer about product increasing. So now I see that the lady talking about the ingredients of the skincare products, just like a doctor. So even though that when the authenticity of our customer is not so high compared to other market, but I do see it increasing. So people care about the quality and really looking for the value for money products right now.
So the consumers are very well educated, right? They are very knowledgeable about
they are
product
being training. They are training thanks to the video platform.
Which is interesting because that in a way will also push the local brands and the local service providers to deliver a better job. I think Hong, you mentioned yesterday during a panel that I think we asked what the trends you see in Vietnam, especially in the e-commerce sector coming to 2025. And what you were saying is that the first, obviously, competition is becoming fierce. A couple of reasons. Platforms are raising the commission rate, which, of course, it doesn't feel nice if you are a seller, but at the end of the day, you know that for the platform to be sustainable, they probably need to make money somewhere. Yes. And also, the players who, also the service level from 5 days to 1 day, etc., that really forces the players to be more efficient. And I think last night I went to a networking session organized by one of the top VCs in the region. So we met 40, 50 Vietnamese entrepreneurs. And many of them actually, compared to entrepreneurs I see in many places, many of them know very well what's going on in China. They're already doing things. So that's why you have the Chinese colleagues coming here saying that, hey, feels a bit different, but feels very similar because you are doing the things that we are doing. But maybe because China is extra competitive, you have, for instance, like Saturday afternoon you're still working, and here is a slightly better life, work-life balance. But But in terms of the fundamentals, it's actually quite similar.
The consumers in Vietnam like currently, and maybe how are they different from maybe 5 years ago? Like you said, right now they are very knowledgeable. A lot of the young people prefer shopping online. What are some other consumer trends that you guys are seeing?
Can I say something? 11 years ago, when I was working for Rocket Internet, we were doing the taxis. We were doing ride-hailing, competing against the Grab. So 2 things we realized about Vietnamese consumers. First thing is that they really like iPhones. But although overall we see that iPhone penetration in Vietnam is probably similar to what you see in other countries, but in the cities you really see a lot of people with iPhones, because back then we developed the app for the drivers. We said, okay, across the world, drivers actually care about their spending, so they only have Android. But come to Vietnam, we counted, I think, the first batch of 500 drivers were hired in Ho Chi Minh City. 55% of them use iPhone. This is something which surprised us the first. And the second is that the consumers were very calculative. The early days of Lazada, we look at their promotion trajectory. I mean, we look at our projection trajectory. We look at food delivery trajectory back in 2013 to 2015. Is you give a promotion, boom, demand goes through the roof. You stop promotion, boom, drop to the ground. But I think over the years, things have probably become a little bit more nuanced or sophisticated. So what do you guys observe now?
So what you observe?
Yeah. So I think, yeah, you're right. Like people, yeah, I think not just consumer in Vietnam, like people everywhere like good deals, right?
Yeah.
Especially, I think,
Especially in
people just
Southeast
went
Asia.
through, tough time, economic downturn.
True.
So everyone are hungry for good deals. But I think we can see that young people, they are also hungry for good products or very special product. Like, I don't know whether it's popular in your country, but in Vietnam, I think, and also in Thailand, Labubu is now kind of a trend. I can see that a lot of my colleagues, they wear a Labubu, like the lovely monster.
The small figure.
That, I think Lisa just wear in...
Like a keychain.
Yes, the keychain. Labubu.
Lisa is that famous...
I think by Pop Mart, because of Blackpink.
Okay,
parents. And you know what? One of my colleagues kind of buy Labubu every live stream. So every day she's gonna have a new blind box, like mystery box, and she likes exploring what is inside. So I think for now she may have up to a few thousand US dollar kind of set up Labubu.
Wow.
Like, and I think every Labubu SKU costs around $15-20 something. But
so she has hundreds.
I feel surprised, and I just into kind of a very surprised finding that, okay, so people, although they might be hungry for deals, for voucher like you, but sometimes you can actually attract people through emotion. So if you can really persuade people that that's something you need to have, then they may not look at the price. I think Labubu buyers for now, they don't look at the deal. They just look at when you really have that special box. Like I think in the collection, there was one special box, and then when it happened, it always sold out. I think girls like you understand, right?
I don't buy
If you have a
But
good
we have a few
product.
colleagues who
Yeah,
buy
but
a
we
lot
have
of
colleagues
theirs.
So
who
I
buy
can say
blind
like,
boxes,
maybe for such case, it's not just about the product, it's also about promotion. Like you like the KOL, like you like Lisa and Blackpink, then you buy. But I think also one of the example of the case that if you really like something and it's so unique, more often than not you will not look at the deal, but you look at how special it is. I think a lot of sellers, they should not dive into the Red Sea, right? They should look for a red kind of blue ocean that they can really win through product, not just through deals.
Absolutely. So 2 weeks ago I was in Indonesia. I talked to one of the largest importers of stationeries, pens.
Stationery.
Pens to be specific. He said there are 2 ways of selling pens in Indonesia, and he believes the same everywhere. Is that first is very standardized pens. I mean, no design and stuff. You sell it at the cheapest price. Everyone competes on price. Yeah. Second is that the pens with a design bear or design panda attached to the top is 2 times the price. But people look at it, people say, okay, I mean, I'm going to use the pen for like, I don't know, half a year. So why don't I spend more and buy something I really like? And for that, there are really lots of differentiated products coming in. I think this is also where life becomes interesting, right? Because this kind of like new, novel, like unique products can actually appeal to audiences.
Back to the time when I worked in the retail, so the offline retail supermarkets.
Yeah. So you were a cashier? No?
Yeah, kind of. Yeah. I put the car along the aisles and put stuff on the shelf. So actually, the very simple thing, they say 80% the sales of the supermarket come from very boring products.
Yeah.
Tissue, milk, beer, cooking oil. And
beer is very boring product.
On that boring categories, people compete on the price.
Yeah.
Same online. People compete very, very severely. for the very functional products online, but for the emotional product, like you say, toys. So you don't have to compete on the price. So it's two different strategy for things. And then let me recall the report from Accenture and TikTok, I think so. And they point out that they survey customer in several APAC countries, and Vietnam on top of two categories. First is the customer be affected by the influencer opinion on the top, and Japan's on the other side. And the second figure is the people value the advice, value the comment from the community. Again, Vietnam on the top. So that two characteristics, I think this is one of the key driver for the live stream commerce in Vietnam.
Yeah.
I think interesting that you guys talk about blind boxes because so we did a report in collaboration with Luck, transforming the frontline industries, where we actually did a case study on PopMart, who sells blind boxes as well, right? And but what's interesting about blind boxes is that these are products that do well offline. Because I know like our colleagues who like to buy blind boxes, they will go to the shops and they will pick up and they will try to weigh it to see if they can get the characters that they want.
I see.
Oh, try to outsmart the company, right?
But you guys do it on live commerce, right? So how do people see what they're buying?
That is like going to buy a lottery and thinking that you're winning chances.
Yeah, it's like
It's the same
Wait.
mentality.
Yeah. It's just the joy of, just opening a gift, right? Yeah, and then without knowing what specifically it is. Yeah.
So for the case of 52 Toys, when I come to Shenzhen, they see that they set up their retail network really good. They everywhere, some mall store, some big store, concept store, even some vending machines. I think when they enter the market in Vietnam, they start with the live commerce first. This is a market entry channel. I think it's smart, but I think sooner or later they will go to offline retail.
Actually, it's true. I mean, in China nowadays as well, live commerce is a way for you to start building a brand. And once you have tested the brand to say that, okay, consumers actually like my products, you move to the traditional e-commerce channels because there you have more reliable, sort of more consistent traffic. And you move to offline where you have the channels people, it's more stable in a way. I think combination of different channels is what people call omni-channel, right?
Yeah.
And use the strength of different channels and stuff. Actually, one more question I have for you guys. We spoke with quite a number of Chinese businesses, either working with Vietnamese partners, either like distributing goods, or either setting up factories here. And many of them say that, okay, it feels that there's similarities in terms of culture, but they feel that there's a difference. And many of them can't really quite pinpoint what the difference is. There's one big Chinese e-commerce company, we are not mentioning which one, they did a study. They actually, their head of organizational development actually did a study to see that why the managers they send from China are not effective. And the conclusion is that they said that the working culture in Vietnam is much less top-down compared to China. At the top level of management is much more consensus-driven compared to China. Is that what you guys see as well, or?
You mean like more bottom up, like balance between bottom up and top down, right?
Yeah, it's
not like centralized from top.
You need to build consensus more amongst the management at least. So in China, it tends to be top down.
Yeah. What do you think?
So actually, I work for several corporates. I work for Vingroup, then I work for in Myanmar.
So Vingroup is the largest conglomerate in the country, right?
Yeah, the group I work for in Myanmar, I think the top 3, top 4 in Myanmar as well.
Okay.
Then I work for a completely different type. Working is I work for the takeaway, just eat takeaway Europe. Then I come back. I work for Korean people. I've experienced so many kind of culture. But yes, I say that in the Vietnamese companies, I think the level of democracy is quite high. To be true, it's quite high, and I think it's a pro and con as well. So when I work for collaborates, they very top down, and then we don't have to spend much time to think. We just do that. We don't have the luxury to debate.
The Korean companies, or
yeah, it's the same as the Vietnam's corporate. So we have the objective, we have the directions. So my job is try to do it the best, most efficient. When we come to Vietnam, especially Vietnam startup, so because we don't know exactly what to do, and maybe just the founders or the CEO just the same age. As we are kind of working friends, so we have more debate, we have more democracies, and in our industry of Metub, when we value activities, I think this is more pro than con.
So you would prefer the meetup style of?
Yeah, the fact is, like, I think that 80-85% of our company is below 30 years old. Because we're really young, we encourage creativities. We love people to raise up, bring idea. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think for me, I will not have to say whether it's real or not. I think it's definitely true. But I want to discuss more about the reason behind. Maybe I think there are reasons that might contribute to that. The fact that people and business in Vietnam are more collective, like it's not really top-down, centralized. One of the reasons I think might potentially be, I do not have any research in hand, but my personal opinion is because of the competition. Maybe like in Vietnam, it's not yet at the scale or at the stage of Chinese economy because you have so many people, so many players, and the competition is too fierce. Like you work 996, right? And then everyone is just trying to make things faster and faster. Here in Vietnam, definitely I think startup is really, really faster than other traditional old business. But I think we don't really have that kind of strong, fierce kind of competition so far. So I think it's one of the reasons why people still have time, room for discussion, debate, and then to decide which way is the best for such a company to grow at a certain period of time. But with that in mind, I don't say that we should be always more collective. I think definitely sometimes like for Metub, for example, in some case, if we are shortage of time or we know that definitely the founder know that's the way that we should go, then everyone must have to do that. Then we just decided to go for that. No one can go against that. I think it also depends on the stage of the business too. That's my 2 cents.
Okay, I think you brought up a very interesting point, right? So we look at certain things, certain phenomena, try to understand what's behind it. What are the factors which lead people to behave in a certain way or lead the organization to behave in a certain way, and then decide whether this way is the best for your organization rather than try. So this is advice I gave to every Chinese businessman who was asking me about this question, right? I said, well, I mean, if you're looking for a formula, then you'll probably not get it. What you should really do is that, I mean, go on the ground, observe, and I think if you can succeed as a businessman in China, you have been through some competition, and you are smart enough, and just observe, just be humble, just find out why things behave in a certain way, why people behave in a certain way. Then you know how to best navigate this. So I think for people who really want to develop the market or who want to leverage the manufacturing, the resources, the infrastructure in this country, what they should really do is just to calm down, work with the people, sort of discuss more with the people, learn and observe, and then you will figure out, I mean, how to navigate yourself. There's no formula.
Maybe one last question to wrap up this podcast. So, like Can said, right, it's good advice for those who want to come to Vietnam to come down and see for themselves. What are some advice you would give for Chinese companies or brands, or not just Chinese companies, but brands or anyone who wants to come to Vietnam and start a business or to do business?
So if just give one piece of advice, I think we have the fast-growing economy and e-commerce and retails, and people in Vietnam generally is open for new brands. This is the opportunities, right? They're open for new brands, but they do have their unit preferences, their unit demand and unit concepts. So I think the best thing the brands would like to enter Vietnam is find a good local partner, so to help them enter the market and grow their brand sustainably.
Yeah, so I think to add more into what Nhi said, like I think, yeah, it really resonates what Can said, like local factor is very important, right? You might be successful in China, in the US, or in other Southeast Asia country, but when you come to other market, even in the same region, it might totally be different, right? Vietnam is just the same. I think it's not a kind of difference. We should be on the ground, like we should be realistic with what we want. So like people said, we aim for high achievement, but we always start small. So even I think for big players, they should always start small and really do a careful research and be on the ground. And with that in mind, they can grow more sustainably and also have a really strong foothold in the country, not just you have a lot of financial resources, you have a strong team in your headquarters. It doesn't guarantee your success in country like Vietnam. Especially I think when it comes to the cultural difference. And like you said, with cultural difference, you can definitely reach out to a local partner to navigate that kind of dynamic. And one more thing is that opportunity come with threats. As you say in your research, like high growth and higher average income or revenue per seller, but number of sellers is in the downward trend. So it means that not everyone is enjoying that benefit, that growth. You should be taking time to do research and then be careful and really, really on the ground. Yeah.
So Sabrina, before we wrap up, I just want to describe where we are. And I didn't see those clearly, but now I can see them. Basically, we're on a grass next to the beach, and there's a bit of nature behind us, and sometimes the ants will come and bite me. Next to us is a camping site, and you can probably hear some music in the background. So people are having fun on a Saturday. But behind the cameras, you see a construction machinery actually building something. And
The crew is working.
Yeah.
the crew is working,
Yeah.
who's filming on a Saturday. Thank you very much. And further back, I mean, I didn't see those, but now I see it.
The
Wow,
wind
so
farm.
many. Yeah, the wind turbines. Do you
Yeah,
see
wind
that?
turbine.
Oh,
Yeah.
I didn't
So,
see
so
that.
just now was not clear, but now you see like, wow,
Yeah.
a lot of them. And a new city is going to be built around, I mean, one of the parts we're seeing, and it's really exciting. I think, Sabrina, you like to come to Vietnam. I mean, part of that is also because it's vibrant, right? It's forward-looking, so.
For the viewers who are confused, I will add a photo in the background so
Okay,
that you
yeah,
know what
you should.
Changan is describing. But yes, thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of the Impulso Podcast. We hope that you guys enjoyed today's episode with our two very special guests. Thank you guys for joining us today. If you did like this episode, do give us a like and share our videos, as well as subscribe to our YouTube channel to stay up to date on the latest trends in e-commerce, tech, and
Digital
the
ecosystem.
broader digital ecosystem. Thank you and bye-bye.
Signing off from Can Gio.
Can
Can you?
The place where we are.
Cần Giờ.
Can Gio, yeah.
Signing
Yeah,
off from
goodbye
Can
from
Gio.
Cần Giờ.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.